welcome to Drinks Coach. This is a cheeky one. Yeah, I was going to start this with don't you know I'm loco? Which is a line which Hansel, played by Owen Williams, says in Zoolander, which comes from the beginning of the song Insane in the Membrane by Cypress Hill. Well, the reason for that is I'm in the presence of greatness, I think is one of the ways to describe this. It's one of the wines which was a critical path in my learning about wine. And when they first produced this wine back in the day, it was a bit of a game changer for me, and a game changer, I think, for the country it comes from. This is a Chilean wine, and this is a wine called Caballo Loco, Crazy Horse. And it's a wonderful wine. I never asked why it's called Crazy Horse. There's a wonderful man who, I think, of recent times, I think, has taken a back seat, and he deserves to be sitting on a beach in Valparaiso, in Zapallar, sipping cocktails and eating great fish from El Chiringuito. His name's Christian Sotomayor, so I doff my cap to you, Christian. And thank you very much, Paul Dunn of Gruppo Valdivieso, for being so kind to send me these wines. He's an old friend of the industry, and he knew I would appreciate them. I most recently went to a wine tasting for one of the largest, one of the most well-known wine distributors in London, called Bibendum. And it was the Battersea Arts Centre, which is around the corner from where I live, so it would have been churlish not to have gone. And on the Valdivieso table, Paul said, you should try that. And I hadn't seen Caballo Loco for so long. And it was Caballo Loco numero, whatever 18 is in Spanish. It was number 18. What does that mean? It doesn't mean 2018. 2018, by the way, greatest vintage in Chile of all time, perhaps, maybe. We'll come back to that. But it was number 18. So there'd been 17 previous Caballo Locos. And I remember the day standing in the tasting office at Doncaster Road at Waitrose, where I was a junior buyer with my line manager, David Gill, Master of Wine. Great, great taster. And we were pouring a glass of Caballo Loco numero uno. And Crazy Horse number 1 was an attempt by this very well-known, and they were one of the first to really paint the wine industry in this country Chile, right? Chilean red. And that was Valdivieso. Valdivieso, you may have come across. You can still buy the wines in shops everywhere. Valdivieso is a company which has many other irons in the fire, certainly in the drink industry. I believe they're one of the largest producers of syrups and jams in the whole country, and in South America that's a big deal. If you had any idea how sweet a tooth the average Chileno has, you'd know that that was important. You can't get coffee in a even 4-star hotel without asking for an espresso that doesn't have sugar put in it beforehand. I'd go downstairs, find an urn, and there'd be milky coffee, and there'd be 2 spoons of sugar per cup. I mean, so 4 a month. Teeth jerkingly sweet. So Valdivieso, famous for many things, but they also have a very successful wine industry. Wine coming from all sorts of valleys. I think Mole is where they were situated initially. I might be able to find it here. Lontué Valley, sorry. Anyway, there are many of them. Look at that bottle. That bottle hasn't changed in 18 years. A bit, not even slightly. I mean, I would even argue, it's probably become more bulletproof. It's less easy to scratch. In the old days, you get lines every time you pull it out of the rack to try and impress someone. I've got Caballo Loco number 1. Crazy Horse number 1. What is it? What is this stuff? Well, it's a Bordeaux blend, fundamentally. So it's made from, fundamentally, Cabernet. It's made from some Merlot, it's made from Cabernet, it's made from blah, blah. But the other bits get thrown in as well. Petit Syrah. I've actually pulled up an email from Paul Dunn so I can help you with this. But also, Caballo Loco number 1, when it was first made, the idea about this is that you're making a wine which is going to have a consistent DNA, that whenever you taste it, there'll be a sense that you know exactly what it is through familiarity. Because over time, each vintage of Caballo Loco is blended with previous vintages. So, for example, this is Caballo Loco number 20. I've never tried it, doing it live on camera, quite exciting, huh? But the number 20 is made from 50% number 19, and it's made from 50% vintages 17, 18, again, 18, brilliant, super vintage. The numero 18, the number 18, the one that I tasted at the Benham tasting, which was sublime in its elegance and its effortlessness to drink, and had this freshness, but it's because it's blending through vintages of wines which have real staying power and elegance. There's no sense of oxidation, although clearly there's a stability built up in the wine through its oxidative aging, because it's done some aging through the interface of the wood. There's less to oxidize. Because this happens slowly, it means that the wine ages exceptionally well. Despite it being very soft and tasty, you think, oh, that's probably good for 4 or 5 years. As I see on this article by Wine Anorec's very own Jamie Good, Dr. Jamie Good, Master of Wine. He's Master of Wine. Well, he's a doctor anyway. Jamie Good has this very good website called Wine Anorak, and it was one of the first to market to really have huge amounts of content. And he bought a bottle from Safeway. Yeah, that's how old Caballo Loco No. 1 is. It predates Safeway disappearing. And he got it for like £6.85. And in Waitrose, we decided to sell it as the best Chilean wine we'd ever tasted at $10.99, I think it was. No, I think it was $10.99, which was retail. If you want to buy this vintage, or you want to buy the 18, which was so good, which I drank a few days ago, you can go to Hedonism Wines, which don't charge crazy prices compared to other premium wine departments. Like certainly Harrods and Selfridges would charge more than Hedonism Wine does. But even so, Caballo Loco No. 18 is $54.99. So they got something right, and we were there on the ground floor, and we realised the greatness when it happened. So I was reading about this, and Jamie Good tasted this wine 17 years old, and he said it was still absolutely stunning. He gave it very close to a gold medal score, and that got me thinking that there were a lot of very, very fine wines which came out of nowhere. There's a Michel Rolland wine from Argentina called Close to Los Sete, which is expensive. It's made from different grape varieties, and it's got loads of oak. And a friend of mine, Victoria Moore from the Daily Telegraph, I mean, she hadn't been writing about wine for very long. But everyone was saying, oh, this wine aged for 15 years, 20 years. And she said, isn't that wine tannic? And I said, no, that wine's going to be jelly in a week. It's going to be done. And in 2 years' time, she bought a case thinking it would age well, and it didn't. And it just shows you that just because a wine is tannic and extracted, it doesn't mean it's going to age well. There is more to it than that. You have to think about where it's from, how it's been made. Sometimes the reason why a wine ages is something you really actually physically can't see or taste. Knowledge with the tasting will give you a really good idea. And here we have a wine that since vintage 1 has been blended from every other previous vintage going forward. So every single Caballo Loco ever made has its DNA in the present glass of the one you've bought. 2018, I think, was an absolute screamer. 2019 was so successful, and I think available in such small quantities that it's sold out at wineries. So this country's never going to see the number 19 manifestation of Caballo Loco. But here we have the wine that will be available from the second half of this year, the wine that will be sold at Christmas. This is Caballo Loco number 20. It's 14.5% alcohol. Let me give you some more information here. Okay. So it's made 50% from 2017-18 vintages, and 50% of it came from the last manifestation, the one that we didn't get to see. It's 14.5% alcohol. It's bone dry. It's got a remarkable acidity of 6 grams. For a wine in Chile of this extract and ripeness, that's amazing. And when you look at the actual components, we're looking at Maipo Cabernet Sauvignon. I did say Maipo originally, didn't I? Although Valdivieso is based in the Montoya Valley. It's got Syrah from the barren area right up in the Atacama Desert called Limery. There's Carmenere from Colchagua, a bit further south. You've got Cabernet Franc from Thurico. Thurico is the warmest of the valleys and was the first one to be popularised in the late 19th century as a wine-growing valley. You've got Maule, again, a warm, relatively warm valley where the Grenache comes from. You've got Tannat and Carignan from the Maule Valley. And we've got Merlot from Thurico as well. So this is a Cabernet Syrah, Carmenere, Cabernet Franc, Grenache, Tannat, Carignan, Malbec, Merlot. Boom. Don't you want to try that? I mean, oh my God, why wouldn't you? It's like an orchestra in a flipping glass. Okay, so here we are. Thank you very much, Paul, for sending all that information. Oh, look, the glass is filthy. I used this before, but I didn't want to wash it because I like my glasses to smell of me. Ooh, there we go. Wow. Okay. All right. Bear in mind, the last time I had this was a few days ago. It was the number 18, which was made from the 2014 vintage backwards. So that wine's already like 10 years old, and it had incredible fluffiness and softness. This wine, when you smell it, has a profound, like, artesian well of mulberry fruit on the nose, which is, I think, a real classic aroma of Merlot and Cabernet from Chile. You start smelling, now I know what's in it, you start smelling the invaders, but there is still a very together component of sort of Malbec and Cabernet. The Malbec gives a kind of a baked plum spice, and then you've got Cabernet giving you the very, very slightly Parisini kind of green or almost red bell pepper, like Napa Cabernet sometimes has. Oh, I don't know if it's going to cost what, but independents are going to be saying this before between £50 and £60. I imagine you can chuck an extra tenner if you buy it from a department store. Amazing freshness. I mean, really. Now, I know my mum watches these shows, and I'm hoping you're watching this, Mama. My mother's in Sweden, June. And I remember when she discovered Caballo Loco on a trip, I'd met the aforementioned Christian Sotomayor and my father, and they all got on very well. And this is one of my mum's special wines too, and it was very nice to have the Caballo Loco on the list in the Three Lions in the pub that I grew up in. There you go. This is like revisiting an absolute general in my pantheon. But the key reason for this show is not about this wine. It's to show that, first of all, it is about this wine up to the point, because it's to show that Valdivieso, when they started this project all those years ago, nearly 2 decades ago, or about 2 decades ago, they hit on something rather special and unique, and there's nothing like this in Chile. Absolutely wonderful wine, and the project still works. Every year you drink this, it becomes more and more a friend, and more silky. The bright, fresh fruit adjunct, whatever goes in new, kind of gives the wine a signature for a few years, maybe even only months. But if you keep this wine in your cellar for 2 or 3 years, and you look at them, they have incredible consistency. Some are slightly riper than others, some are slightly more tannic than others, but you have this orchestral, this cordiant flavour which works very well. Now, I can see that. There's actually a number 20 written on the label. Caballo Loco numero 20. Introducing Caballo Blanco. Yes, that's right. There's a white crazy horse. Numero uno. This is number 1. They're starting again with white wine, with the same philosophy that, of course, by blending small components of very carefully curated and aged in barrel, oxidative, general blending. So you get a wine which has done a lot of its aging already, but under very controlled conditions, so the wine doesn't taste old. It tastes resolved, if anything, like ready and finished. So, what can I tell you about this? Again, this has some Syrah from Limeri in it. I told you about the desert. Atacama Desert. It hasn't rained in the Atacama Desert in some parts for 10,000 years. In the wine region area, there hasn't been any rain for the last 4 years. The ground is so sterile, you can get down on your knees and lick it. There is not even microorganisms. There's not even that. It's a very, very, very strange place indeed. And by bringing water over from the Andes, downhill many hundreds of kilometres, they spray it on this piece of ground because the soil is perfect, the climate is perfect. What they don't have is water, which is essential. And by bringing water to Limeri, you can grow incredible fruit. It doesn't sound terribly sustainable, does it, really? But it does produce incredible wine. Now, so, 45% Chardonnay from Limeri. Brilliant. And the best Chardonnay in Chile, bar none, comes from Limeri. It's got Moscatel de Alejandra, which is Moscatel of Alexandria, large muscat, Frontignan muscat, Frontignac as you call it, and that comes from the Itatas coastal hillside. Sounds like it's from the coast and it's on a hillside. So I'm guessing if you have Chile, right, as a country, it's very, very long, nearly 2,900 kilometres on it, of the over 4,000 kilometres, has wine regions in it. And on one side, you've got a big hill called Andes, and on the other side, you've got an ocean called the Pacific. And down the middle, you've got lots and lots and lots of these different valleys that cut across. But on this side, there are hills before you get the valley. So it's kind of like somebody's gouged with a chisel, gouged a line across the backbone, the western backbone of South America, because it doesn't get the cold from the sea that readily, but it gets a lot of cold air drainage at night. When the cold air comes down the mountains, the vineyards chill that way. But there are little gaps in the hills. Especially when you come up to a little bit in Casablanca near Lolo, and if you go up to Atacama, the air comes in from the Pacific, so you're getting cold air from both sides. So they're very, very fresh climates. So I'm guessing from just the description, Itatas coastal hillsides, an area I've certainly not been to, I'm getting a feeling that there's cool air all the time, which would explain why Moscatel, which is generally quite a low acid wine, isn't changing the balance of this wine too much and keeps it fresh. Also, there's Mulchen Pinot Noir. They've pressed Pinot Noir as a Blanc de Noir. They've pressed the grapes and taken the white juice out and added that as a component. Sagrada Familia, yes. It's a big radiator-looking church in Barcelona. It's bonkers. Jury's out on whether I think it's nice or not. But that's also a region of winemaking in Chile, and Viognier comes from there. It's a very, very arid area where Viognier has great concentration. Also, you've got Pinot Gris from Casablanca. Casablanca is the area of Chile, only about 40 minutes drive from Santiago, where the best Sauvignon Blanc comes from. So it's sort of a cool, moderate climate. Does have access to the cool air from the sea. And also there's Semillon from Thurico. I've mentioned Thurico as a very warm valley, and there's a lot of Semillon planted there. You know, if just by the side, we've talked about the first wine, the second wine. We've mentioned Cabernet, Cabernet Franc, Carignan, Malbec, Merlot, Sauvignon Blanc, Semillon. What have they all got in common? They're all Bordeaux varieties. Now, that's not an accident. When Phylloxera vacitrix, a disease, nearly wiped out the vines in France in the mid-19th century, people left and came to Chile and brought the vines with them. So that's why you get a lot of these Bordeaux lookalikes in Chile now. It's not because they chose, it's because they had to. So you're in this wonderful big bottle. Not very fashionable to have big bottles, but I've seen bigger. This is acceptably fancy, I think. And you can tell from the colour, God, wonderful burnished white gold steel to it, that this wine, all those different grape varieties blended together in new and aged barrels over 2 to 4 years old, you've ended up with this quorum, this synod of fantastic wine, which has done a lot of the oxidizing already. So this is a wine that isn't a wine that's going to develop very, very quickly in the glass, but what you see in the glass and what you drink in Caballo Loco Blanco Numero Uno is something that will stay very, very familiar with you and age gracefully, because it's done the metamorphosis from fresh, jolly, parochial fruit to more vinous, nutty, rich flavours. It's already there. So what I love about this wine is the process of this aging, this what we call Solera aging of barrels together and mixing vintages with old vintages, means that you get to see already what you're buying. And I think it's a very, very clever way of making wine, if not a very, very different and crazy one, hence the name. So this has 6.5 grams of sugar, of acidity, which is only a half a gram higher than the red wine, which shows you how good and fresh the red is. Again, it's fermented dry. It's only 13% alcohol, which is encouraging. You wouldn't want a wine like this, all those oxidative flavours, to be 14.5, 15. It would taste like a slightly overbearing Californian white, which I'm not a big fan of. Our great and prolific wine writer in this country, Tim Atkin, is writing an annual report on Chilean wines. And I was pleased to say when I said to Paul how amazing I thought it was going to be, he said, Guy gave it 97 out of 100, which is maybe the highest score ever given to a Chilean white wine. I dread to think if there was ever a better wine than that. I don't know. Wow. Sometimes this happens. Sometimes when I do this show, feeling a little bit emotional all of a sudden. I don't know why. It just makes your emotions run wild. The Moscow has been aged in clay amphora, and I got this wonderful fuzzy, soft, cold clay texture in the wine, which that wine component has brought to it. And it also has been allowed to produce a veil of flor, which is the kind of yeast that you get in Fino sherry. So there's a wonderful back note of subtle nuttiness, but brightness and freshness. The rest of it is stainless steel, fresh in a way, but there, you can still taste the oak. They regularly went back to the barrels each time and stirred them as the wine was kind of homologating, or whatever you call it, homogenizing. Wow! You saw it first here. Caballo Loco #1, best white Chilean wine I've ever tasted. By a mile. See you next time.